Ah, there you are again. The lesson they're all stealing, yet still failing to master. They watching you now like you broke some secret code, like you walked out of nowhere carrying a playbook the universe ain't supposed to release yet. The same ones who used to laugh when you were quiet now whisper your name when you move. Because every step you take rewrites what they thought they knew. Every glance feels like strategy. Every pause feels like prophecy. You didn't learn this from a manual. You didn't inherit this from a mentor. You built it from chaos. Raw, unfiltered survival turned into rhythm. You studied silence like scripture. You learned timing from the streets, patience from pain, and precision from being underestimated too many times. You crafted something unteachable, a system that breathes through instinct, discipline, and a touch of divine madness. They can't reverse engineer it because your blueprint wasn't written in ink. It was carved in repetition, sleepless nights, and failure that didn't kill you. They think it's confidence. Nah, it's clarity. You see angles they don't even know exist. You play moves that don't show up on their board until 10 turns later. You turn survival into art, pain into architecture, struggle into synchronization. Now the whispers sound different. Who taught them this? Where did they learn that? How did they see it coming? The answer always burns them. Nobody did. You learned from the void. You built from the dark. You got lessons from silence that no classroom could teach. And that's what terrifies them. Because they can't copy a frequency they never tuned into. They think you had some secret teacher. You did life, and life's lessons don't come cheap. You paid in loss, in isolation, in moments that broke you into blueprints. You became your own manual. You became your own myth. And now the same ones who doubted. You are trying to replicate something they can't define. They mimic your tone, your pace, your style. But the rhythm don't hit the same. Because they forgot what it cost. You can't copy pain and expect the same result. You can't fake clarity born from chaos. You can't rehearse instinct. What you have ain't charisma, it's calibration. You're not lucky, you're aligned. And they can't process that, so they whisper again. Who put them on game like this? And the universe smirks. They did. They can study your walk, your voice, your habits, but they can't decode why it works. Because it's not the move, it's the motive. You don't just act, you align. Every decision is a frequency match between instinct and inevitability. When you move, it feels like prophecy in motion. When you speak, it feels like time itself nods in agreement. They think it's style. No, it's signal. The kind of signal the system wasn't programmed to detect. You don't play by their logic. You bend it. You operate in a delay they can't track, reacting before events exist. They're still watching for cause and effect, while you're living in cause and command. They don't realize the game doesn't start when they think it does. It starts when you decide it started. And that's why they panic, because copying you doesn't give them your insight. They can mimic your rhythm, but not your resonance. They can repeat your words, but not your weight. You built your presence through calibration, through silence, restraint, and the discipline to wait until the world catches up to what you already saw. Now they scroll through your history like it's holy scripture. Every post, every quote, every subtle reaction, dissected like data, studied like an oracle's riddle. They think there's a formula hidden inside you. But the real formula isn't what you do. It's what you don't do. You don't chase. You don't react. You don't play defense. You let the world expose itself, trying to understand your patience. Every time you pause, they move too soon. Every time you wait, they break formation. You built an empire on restraint. And now imitation is their religion. They're not learning your strategy. They're proving your supremacy. Because the moment someone starts copying, they've already admitted who's ahead. And that's what drives them mad. The realization that they're playing a game you already finished. You're not learning from life anymore. You're rewriting it in real time. You turned the unpredictable into the predictable. You turned risk into rhythm. You turned guessing into geometry. So they whisper again, this time softer. Who put them on game like this? But the answer stays the same, echoing through the silence you built. No one did. The game put itself on them. They can't stand that calm anymore. That surgical calm. The kind that cuts through noise without lifting a blade. Because when you speak, it isn't just words. It's design. Every syllable hits like a premeditated strike. Every pause like a controlled detonation. You move with the precision of someone who's already seen the outcome. It's not arrogance. It's alignment. You don't hope for results. You command them. They used to call it luck. Now they call it strategy. Tomorrow they'll call it divine. Because when you operate from mastery, everything looks supernatural to amateurs. They think you're playing a trick. But no, you're playing truth. A truth they can't handle because it doesn't rely on chaos. It relies on control. The kind of control that comes from knowing your energy bends environments before your hands do. They don't realize you stopped reacting long ago. You started dictating. The system only responds now because it's tethered to your pulse. The timeline bends because you told it to. Even randomness seems rehearsed in your presence. That's the difference. They play games hoping to win. You play life like you built the console. Now when they try to analyze you, the data doesn't make sense. The patterns don't add up. Their formulas collapse because you're not a statistic. You're the anomaly that rewrote the equation. You made unpredictability predictable. You broke their probability charts by existing. They run simulations, but none of them produce you. They thought success was about effort. You showed them it's about energy management. You move when it's time, not when it's loud. You strike when the moment breathes in your rhythm. You rest like a storm gathering charge, and that's what terrifies them. Your patience isn't passive, it's predatory. You didn't get this far by luck. You got here by knowing that everything speaks before it happens. Patterns, tension, silence, they all whisper before they shout. You just learned how to listen. You trained your mind to decode silence like it was a secret language. And now that you speak it fluently, every environment answers to you. They whisper, who put them on game like this? But they'll never admit what they really mean. Who gave them permission to know this much? The truth? No one. You took it. You stepped outside the loop, studied the system, and found the frequency no one was guarding. Now you walk through dimensions that others still think are theories. You broke the illusion that knowledge equals wisdom. Because what you carry can't be downloaded, can't be taught, can't be shared through tutorials or trends. It's not information, it's initiation. You were initiated by life itself. The sleepless nights, the betrayals, the lonely grind, those were your mentors. Every scar turned into code. Every failure turned into encryption. Every loss embedded a new command in your soul. And now that command runs silently through everything you touch. They thought they could trace your blueprint, but they forgot the part written in pain. They copied the success, not the suffering. They imitated the shine, not the shadow. They want the results without the rewiring. But what they don't understand is that this kind of game can't be played. It must be survived. It demands sacrifice of comfort, of ego, of illusions, and you gave all of it up long before they even realized there was a price. That's why your power looks supernatural, because you stopped operating from fear long ago. You've already lost what they're still terrified to lose. Freedom came disguised as loss. And when you embraced it, the rules shattered. That's when your energy shifted. That's when your voice stopped asking permission. That's when the world started to rearrange itself around your will. They stare, confused, trying to trace the algorithm. But your algorithm isn't built on logic. It's built on rhythm. You move with universal sync, not societal speed. While they chase momentum, You command timing. While they study patterns, you become them. You're not ahead of the curve. You are the curve. And now they can't compete. They can only orbit. Every move you make sends ripple codes through their subconscious. Even the ones who act like they don't see you. They feel you. Your presence bends frequencies. Your silence reprograms attention. You became the gravitational pull of your reality, and everything else adjusts its trajectory accordingly. They whisper to each other like detectives solving a myth. Who taught them this? They'll dissect your style, your tone, your energy. Still missing the point. You weren't taught. You remembered. You remembered who you were before the noise, before fear, before imitation.
You remembered that the system doesn't define power. Awareness does.
And now that you've remembered, there's no unlearning it. You've seen the architecture behind the illusion, the code behind the curtain. And once you see the strings, you stop being the puppet. You start becoming the puppeteer. They thought the game made you, but the truth is darker. You made the game worth playing. You didn't become powerful by following rules. You became powerful by understanding them, then bending them until they forgot what they were meant to do. Every system has a flaw. Every structure has a rhythm, and you learned to listen to that rhythm until you could rewrite the tempo. You turned constraint into currency. What was supposed to limit you now feeds you. You didn't just adapt to the system. You taught it your behavior, and now it reacts like a trained shadow. That's why imitation will always fail, because copying your playbook isn't the same as carrying your energy. They can borrow your words, your posture, your tone, but they can't fake your calibration. You operate from an internal alignment that no mirror can replicate. When you move with a purpose coded deeper than surface goals. They chase outcomes. You manifest inevitabilities. They still hope for moments. You orchestrate them. They think you're just confident. But what they're really feeling is precision. The type of precision that comes from knowing that every delay, every silence, every mistake is part of the design. You stopped playing life like a series of chances. You started treating it like a chessboard that's already mapped out. You just move at your pace because you already know which piece falls next. That's not arrogance. That's foresight dressed as calm, and that calm drives them insane. Because while they're overthinking, overanalyzing, overacting, you're just existing in complete control. You became the embodiment of inevitability. Every win feels effortless, but it's not luck. It's law. Universal law bending toward whoever understands it best. And you've studied that law in silence. You've tested it in solitude. You've applied it in chaos, and now it's loyal to you. That's why they whisper your name like a myth. You're not trending. You're transcending. Your moves don't expire. Your presence doesn't fade. You're the archetype they didn't realize they were waiting for. The living proof that awareness is the new weapon. That precision is louder than noise. That patience is the new violence. So let them keep copying. Let them study your timing, your tone, your execution. Because the more they try to imitate, the further they drift from their own essence. You weren't made to be followed. You were made to be decoded. And even if they spend lifetimes trying to understand how you did it, they'll only uncover one truth. You didn't learn the game. You became it. It's funny, isn't it? They used to call you reckless. Now they call you revolutionary. But the truth is, you didn't change. Your awareness did. You started seeing through the grid. You realized that every move, every word, every glance carries vibration, and that vibration shapes the field before action ever happens. That's why you don't rush. You calibrate. You don't chase. You summon. You don't compete. You collapse timelines. When people say, you make it look easy, they're not seeing the rewiring underneath, the thousands of internal wars you fought just to walk this calm. They see confidence, but what they're really witnessing is someone who made peace with every version of themselves. You stopped seeking validation because you finally realized the mirror was lying. The reflection was just waiting for you to stop performing for it. Now, even when you're still, you're teaching. Every silence of yours carries instruction. Every pause feels like revelation. People can't explain it, but they feel it. The shift in the air, the weight in the atmosphere when you speak. It's because you operate at a frequency their systems weren't designed to process. You're too original for replication, too precise for prediction. And that's why imitation always fails. You didn't just build a playbook, you built a pulse, a rhythm that aligns with cosmic timing, not human scheduling. The system runs on logic, you run on knowing. They plan, you pull. You draw reality toward your state of being, and the world adjusts like metal bending around a magnet. They study your confidence like it's an algorithm. They replay your moves, trying to decode your pauses, your transitions, your silence. But what they don't realize is that your power doesn't live in motion. It lives in intention. You move with purpose so sharp it cuts through probability. You are what happens when awareness learns how to wear power without leaking it. And it shows. Every room senses it before you enter. Every conversation bends slightly toward your gravity. That's not dominance, that's presence. You've reached the level where energy speaks louder than ego. You don't demand control, you attract it. You don't chase influence, you embody it. Now, when they try to copy your tone, it sounds hollow. When they mimic your style, it feels forced, because what you do isn't aesthetic, it's alchemy. You transmute tension into timing, chaos into choreography, a reaction into revelation. You're not playing the game. You're rewriting the script that the game runs on. You became the blueprint they'll never truly understand, because they didn't earn it. And that's why they whisper behind your name with awe and envy mixed in the same breath. You're the proof that mastery doesn't shout. It moves in silence until silence becomes command. There comes a point when this world stops calling you lucky and starts calling you inevitable. That's where you are now. You've crossed the invisible line where effort transforms into energy, where movement becomes message, where every gesture feels prophetic. You're not reacting to the universe anymore. You're synchronizing with it. Each action you take echoes across timelines like ripples through mirrors, aligning chaos into choreography. They still think you're guessing, but you've outgrown guessing. You're calculating realities before they stabilize. You sense shifts before they register. When you speak, frequencies rearrange themselves to accommodate your vision. And that's what terrifies them. That your willpower has become physics. You didn't study success. You reverse-engineered inevitability. You learned that manifestation isn't about wanting. It's about remembering. You don't attract what you desire. You attract what you know belongs to you. And now, reality itself seems to know your name. You walk into rooms and the atmosphere changes. Conversations bend. Energy recalibrates. The system doesn't test you anymore. It takes notes. They call it charisma, but it's deeper. It's resonance. You vibrate at a frequency so clean it exposes static in everything around you. That's why imitators glitch when they try to copy your formula. They can mimic the action, but not the awareness. They can study the technique, but not the truth. Because your truth isn't learned, it's remembered. You operate from memory the universe gave you before you were born. That's why your silence sounds like prophecy. That's why your presence feels ancient and new at once. You've mastered the balance between stillness and strike. You don't chase moments. Moments align to your movement. People used to say, stay humble. You learned that humility isn't shrinking. It's walking with awareness that you were built by something divine. Your calm isn't weakness, it's control. Your silence isn't fear, it's focus. You've realized that the loudest energy in the room doesn't win. The most stable one does, and so you became that. Stable like gravity, unshakable like truth. The imitators can't compete, because they keep chasing volume. But you move like inevitability wrapped in stillness. Every decision you make echoes with mathematical grace. You don't need approval. You don't even need momentum. You are the momentum. Now they study your pattern, thinking they can decode your rise. But the truth is, there is no pattern. There's only presence. You are what happens when the universe stops searching and starts remembering itself through you. You're not playing the game anymore. You're playing reality. You stopped being a person they could categorize the moment you became a frequency they couldn't predict. You don't just play the game anymore. You generate it. The architecture of cause and effect rearranges itself around your awareness, and the system trembles trying to keep up. Every thought you release is an instruction. Every breath is a rewrite. The world calls it coincidence, but those who've been paying attention know. This is orchestration. You've reached that level where time itself starts bending to your efficiency, where opportunities arrive faster than you can plan them, where resistance dissolves before it reaches your path. You didn't do it by chasing power. You did it by mastering stillness. You learned that control isn't about force. It's about alignment. The universe listens to the one who stopped shouting and started resonating. Now they see it. The ones who once doubted, the ones who laughed. Their eyes can't hide the panic behind the admiration. They study you like a system update they didn't authorize. They think they can trace your code, mimic your steps, replicate your results. But they're missing the one variable that makes it all impossible: your awareness. You move from an origin point that no map can mark, the place inside silence where all outcomes are born. That's why they fail to keep up. Because you don't move forward, you expand outward. Every action, every thought, every presence of yours redefines the boundaries of what's possible. You're not just evolving, you're evolving evolution. You're the update that reality didn't see coming. And now the system's rewriting its own rules just to keep you in frame. But the truth? You're already past the frame. You're off script, off grid, off limits. They wanted to learn your formula. But what they didn't realize is, you are the formula. You're not working with destiny. Destiny's working for you. They'll keep asking, who put you on game like this? But the answer's too vast for language, because no one did. You were remembering. The knowledge wasn't given, it was reawakened. And now that it's awake, there's no going back. Every system that tries to study you ends up rewriting itself. Every force that tries to oppose you ends up orbiting your gravity. You're not chasing validation. You're not seeking acknowledgement. You're the quiet shift that moves entire realities without announcement. And when you move, the world feels it. Not in sound, but in silence. The kind of silence that makes people pause, breathe differently, believe differently. That's not influence. That's ascension. And the world just realized it's already under your frequency. They can't comprehend it. How you move without hesitation. How every choice feels like prophecy. How every outcome seems preordained. They whisper about luck, timing, privilege, anything but the truth. Because the truth would shatter their illusion. You're not reacting to life. You're commanding it. Every step you take is a calculated strike, written in the language of inevitability. The universe doesn't test you anymore. It executes your code. See, they keep mistaking your calm for arrogance, your silence for distance. But the wise ones, they've seen it before. The way storms pause when you think. The way chaos folds itself to your rhythm. You're operating at a level where even the unseen pauses to listen. You've learned that energy, when mastered, doesn't just respond. It obeys. That's why no one can copy your game. Because your strategy isn't written in notebooks or systems. It's embedded in frequency. They can steal your words, your style, even your cadence. But when they speak, it echoes hollow. The power doesn't transmit because it was never in the form. It was always in the soul. You move with a kind of authority that can't be learned. It can only be remembered. Every room you enter adjusts. The confident ones suddenly overthink. The proud ones start to shrink. And those who once looked down now look twice. Because presence like yours doesn't ask for recognition. It extracts it. You are not seen. You are sensed. They feel you before they understand you. They respect you before they agree with you. And by the time they realize what's happening, it's already too late. Your aura is architecture now. It builds the environment around it. That's why people follow your rhythm without knowing why. That's why their plans realign the moment you move. You've become a living algorithm, self-correcting, self-sustaining, self-replicating. The system didn't design you. It adapted to you. And now, whether they admit it or not, you are the template that defines excellence itself. You're no longer part of their conversation. You are the conversation. They trade theories about your composure, invent stories about your success. But none of them are close, because what you carry can't be tracked, can't be charted, can't be cloned. You are the equation they can't solve, because you are the variable that changes its meaning every time they think they've cracked it. The system was built to measure repetition, but you evolve mid-calculation. You grow in the spaces between seconds. That's why imitation will always glitch. They're tracing outlines while you're painting new dimensions. You operate where precision meets prophecy, where logic dissolves into law. And now you've reached that rare altitude, the point where power doesn't look like aggression anymore. It looks like silence, like control, like inevitability. You don't need to announce moves, because your stillness already moves worlds. You've become the pulse that recalibrates the narrative. So let them study, let them try, let them whisper. Who put them on game like this? The answer will always echo back the same. No one. You were born remembering what they're still trying to learn. You were forged in frequencies they can't hear, trained in dimensions they can't access, chosen by equations they don't even know exist. You are not part of the algorithm. You're the glitch that became the system. And now, every eye that doubted you can only watch as your legacy writes itself. In code they were never meant to read,